We'll call this the November 12th meeting of the Ponca City Board of Education to order. Will you join me in the flag salute to start? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brett? Good turnout tonight.
Pray with me. Father, we want to thank you for all of the blessings that you bestow on us each and every day. The holiday season is upon us. Keep us safe as we travel. Keep our families safe and warm during the winter months. Please be with our new legislators as they take office this month. Help them make decisions that are good for the masses and not the few. Please be with our certified and support staff. These folks are the ones who influence our students to study hard, be good citizens, and succeed in life. We single out and thank our support professionals this week, as they are truly instrumental to the successes of the Ponca City Public Schools and its mission to educate students. We would also ask you to protect our men and women of the armed forces as they sacrifice many things in order to protect us. We'll lift up our veterans as they inspire us all for dedication, bravery, and sacrifices to our country. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Brett. Be seated, please. Next order, Jan, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Kincaid.
Here.
Mr. Newsom. Mr. Riley.
Here.
Mrs. Truth.
Present.
Mrs. Zimmershed. Here.
Next order of business will be the presentation of the Employee of the Month and the Friends of Education. We'll start with the Certified Employee of the Month, Christina Merault. There she is. She is the Assistant Principal at Ponca City High School.
As Mr. Riley said, Ms. Merault is the assistant principal at Poe High. Here's what her colleagues wrote about her. Christina is supportive of classroom teachers. She helps with classroom discipline issues as well as providing assistance to teachers in attempting to improve student grades, attendance, and participation. Ms. Merault supports students, providing direction and instructions in an appropriate manner. Visiting with teachers and parents is necessary. Her diligence is in effectively monitoring the student body and providing direction without seeming bossy shows she has what it takes to get her job done. The students respond well to her approach and abilities. She excels at modeling appropriate and acceptable behavior. Christine is deserving of the honor of being named Employee of the Month for November. She exemplifies the Poe High spirit. Congratulations.
Our next award will be to the Support Employee of the Month. It goes to Maureen Dooley, the Registrar, Finance Secretary at East Middle School.
All right, I'm Denton Long. I'm the principal at East Middle School, and I've got Maureen here with me. The staff of East Middle School would like to thank Maureen for all of her hard work this year. At the end of last year, Maureen was asked to take on the role of 2 employees, and she accepted with no hesitation and has performed wonderfully. She keeps so many things in line at the office, it would be hard to imagine the school without her. She is a diligent worker and dedicated to Team Ponca. The staff can always depend on her for answers to the various questions, and she's worked very hard this past summer to help improve the morale of the staff at East Middle School by updating and improving the teacher's lounge. EMS is definitely a better place with Maureen.
Our last award this afternoon will go to the Friends of Education. That'll be to Smith Home Furnishings, and I think Larry Smith's here to accept the award.
Also, East Middle School would like to thank the Smith Home Furnishings for their generous contribution to our teacher lounge. We appreciate the donation of the couch, love seat, coffee table, and end tables. You have helped make our teacher lounge a welcoming and positive space for our staff. Thank you for supporting Team Ponca.
If the 3 award winners will go out in the lobby here
get your picture taken, you'll probably end up in the Ponca City News.
Maybe. This is the first time that Larry's received this award. Really? Yeah, he's gotten it before.
Our next agenda item is 2.2, a presentation from Carter's Run. This will be done by Miss Kelly Backus and Mr. Carter Backus.
I'm Kelly and this is Carter, and we were able to have our 9th Carter's Run this year, and we were privileged to have the school system let us have our money go to them. And so I just wanted to be able to give back. Carter's been in Ponca City Schools since he was 3, so he's been in there for 10 years, and we've had nothing but amazing experience from Union all the way through, and so we're just so thankful. And it's just a little bit of us to give back to you, and we appreciate you being on board with us, Shelley. And we were able to raise $2,000
Wow.
for Ponca City Schools Special Needs Program.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
For those that don't know, Kelly is the daughter of Dr. Kincaid and Carter is the grandson. I think everybody probably was aware of that.
Carter has been in our district, as Kelly said, since he was 3, and I happen to be his principal at Union. And here's what I can say about Carter Backus. He is the epitome of a wildcat. He is happy all the time. He treats others with respect. He's a great role model for other students in our district, and he exemplifies the wildcat way every day. So we thank you, Carter and Kelly, for your service to our district.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item will be a Liberty music performance.
What's that?
That's awesome.
Oh, well. Okay, come on.
He says, now you gotta wear it.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is some of our students from Liberty that are part of one or two of our different performing groups. We have students who are part of our Circle the State choir that goes to Stillwater and sings with about 230 other students in January, so we're preparing for that. We also have some students who are part of our Orff ensemble. All of the students at Liberty have the opportunity to play Orff instruments throughout the school year, but this ensemble gets to play some extra. I see them once a week for about 40 minutes, and we then go to El Reno in February, and we perform with about 200 other kids on instruments and singing, and we accompany ourselves on our instruments. Tonight, we'll be singing 2 patriotic selections for you, and the students will accompany on one of them, and they will sing a cappella on the other. Thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you.
job, kiddos.
Good job.
Good job. Thanks for coming out on this cold night. Thank you, Mrs. Orr. Great job.
And the parents are excused, more than happy to go out and pick the children up and go out in the lobby with them. You're welcome to stay if you want to, but cold as it is, I think I'd go home if I had the choice.
And it's just getting colder.
Yeah, yeah, you go bring them back, Brett.
One going this morning,
Just take it home with you.
I went out, looked up and throw hay over tonight. The horses wouldn't do very long, we're okay.
Why don't they leave her alone? Okay. Why don't they leave her alone? Why won't the horses leave her alone?
Because it was hay, and I fit all the rest of the cows away from her.
Well, they're heading out the door. Our next agenda item is the public comments. We had no one sign up for it, so we will skip that one. We'll go straight to the superintendent's report with potential board discussions.
All right.
And I'll turn it over to you.
All right, this is the night of reports, and I am going to talk to you about our ACT achievement of our graduates of May of 2018. Now, our district received the annual results of our achievement for our graduates, but I want to clarify something. This last year, either the ACT or the SAT became the Oklahoma School Testing Program for all juniors. The results that I'm going to share with you tonight are not from all of our juniors. These are from our May 18 graduates. So our graduates that graduated in May, and it's their cumulative scores. And these are our average ACT scores for the district and state. The top row is Ponca City, the state is the bottom row, and you can see where we stand in English, a 19, math, a 20, reading, a 21.4, science, 20.8, and our composite, that's overall, is 20.4. And all of those are highlighted in green because we still remain above the state average for our graduates who are college-bound. Now, Mr. Dilbeck will report on our Oklahoma State testing program result of all of our juniors when he does his data assessment, and I believe that's in February. The next chart tells us our percent ready for college level coursework. And through collaborative research, ACT sets benchmark scores for college readiness. They determine college readiness and course success. And the benchmark score actually is the minimum score needed on an ACT subject area test to indicate a 50% chance of obtaining a B or higher in the class, or a 75% chance of obtaining a C or higher in the class. And the English composition score, if they do well if they score an 18 as the benchmark for the English test, then they are likely to score a B, 50% obtaining a B, or 75% obtaining a C. 55% of our students scored at least an 18 on the ACT English, which as compared to 50 across the state. For college algebra, students had to score, the benchmark is a 22 on the math ACT, and 36% of our students scored a 22 on the math ACT as compared to 28 in the state. For social sciences, a student needed to score 22 on an ACT reading test to set the benchmark, and 45% of our students did that as compared to 39% of the 2018 graduates in the state. And then for biology, a student had to score 23 on the ACT science test, and 35% of our students did that as compared to 26% of the graduating students of May 2018. Meeting all four of the benchmarks, 23% of our kids met all of the benchmarks as compared to 16% of the state. This is a 5-year trend of our scores as compared to the state. This data was collected beginning in May of 2013. The testing in the spring before the May 2013 graduates, and we have consistently been ahead of the state in our composite scores for ACT. So this last year, our composite was a 20.4 versus a 19.3 in the state. Again, this is not of all of our juniors testing, this is just of our May 2018 graduates. Any questions about our ACT results of our graduating class of 2018?
I've got one question. Why would the raw data scores vary from 18 to 23, depending on subject matter? Why wouldn't it all be the same?
Well, I don't know that, but through the collaborative research with higher educational institutions, ACT established this benchmarks. Probably they had determined them from field tests and correlated those to student success in coursework.
But if you go back to the chart, the higher the raw data requirement, the lower the percent that are ready. Are they just making it more rigorous, or?
That would be my guess.
Okay.
Obviously, they used years and years of data, but it had to be a 23 in biology for a student, or in science for a student to, 50% of the students to maintain a B or better. So that speaks that probably biology is more rigorous at the secondary level.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm good, we're good, sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Report with potential board discussions. We'll start with Carla doing the alternative education plan. Might probably route in the way again.
And you want to scoot over here and so you can see here?
That's over here.
Okay.
I think this is mine, yes. All right. Right now, this is actually not correct. We have 117 kids at Wildcat Academy. Every day, I have at least 2 or 3 wanting in, so I have a massive waiting list. We had 68 graduates last year compared to the 50, I think we had 54 the year before, so every year we're gaining some graduates. We've had 1 graduate this year so far. Our school hours, we go 5 hours and 45 minutes a day. Currently, we have 19 students that go to Pioneer Tech, and what we do is the kids that go to Pioneer Tech leave at 12:15, and I have a whole nother group that comes in and takes their seat. So that way I can see more kids with my teachers every day. So I have my teachers stay till 4, and we have kids there from 7:30 till 4 o'clock every day. We have 3 students that are taking courses at Poe High. We have somebody in band, we have somebody that wrestles, we have a flag girl, somebody that's in flag corps, we have some that are going to run track, we have a football player, so we have kids that are involved in a lot of the sports also at Poe High. Team Pep, I have 10 girls, and we had 1 graduate last year, and they go the same amount of time, and then I have 1 that is also actually my girl that's in flag corps is at the Team Pep. So, and let's see here if I can figure out, I don't think I'm doing this right, but okay, we do an Edgenuity. It's an online program. We have about 50 course options. It's self-paced. The students are allowed to work from home, so if they're sick and they still want to do some work at home, they can log on and work at home. They can't take a test at home. Those have to be monitored by a teacher, but they can get on and do some work at home. So that keeps them from getting so far behind if they're out for any reason. Our math, we have Algebra 1 and Geometry taught by a math teacher, and we also have English taught by an English teacher. And then we have U.S. History is taught by a teacher, and then we have an art teacher that comes over and does art every day, and we do a couple of electives. We do a current events and a history through film and stuff like that just to help the kids get some electives. And they can earn as many credits as they can get. So if they get in a class, and they work really hard and they work at home, and we have one little girl that has come in and she's there at 7:30 and stays till 4 every day. And so she's getting a ton of credits because she's just working as hard as she can, and she's doing really well. So they have the potential to, if they're behind, that allows them to get caught up. We have several people that come in and work with us. The Oklahoma Department of Health, they come in and work with my Teen Pep girls. And the Ponca City Leadership Alumni, they're the PI partner for Teen Pep. And the Northern Oklahoma College nursing students, they come over and show the girls how to do CPR on their babies. They show them how to take care of them if they're sick. They talk to them about when they can go off the bottle. You know, the girls sometimes don't even have a clue of how long they need to be on a bottle. And they talk to them about stuff like that, first aid. Northern Oklahoma Youth Services, they come in and talk to them about some of the options. Some of our girls aren't old enough to even actually take their own child to the doctor. So they come in and tell them how to do that. Edward D. Jones is a PI partner for Wildcat Academy, as is the Community National Bank. And we also are part of the food bank. We have that for the Teen Pep and for Wildcat Academy. Our kids eat breakfast with us, so the food bank, we order lots of breakfast items and the kids eat breakfast there. And then we send food home almost daily with someone. And then the Ponca City Chamber Education Workforce Committee helps us out. They've collected paper supplies for us and stuff like that. And our evaluation has in the past been done by OTAC, but last year the State Department of Education took it over, so they're not using OTAC anymore. And so it was a little different than what it had been in the past. And we were highly effective in every area. Our faculty selection was effective in that. The reason that was not highly effective was because I'm one teacher short. They said in order to have their proper student-to-teacher ratio, I needed one more teacher. So they just gave me effective in that. And then in arts education, they said we were minimally compliant. And that was because even though we had an art teacher, not every single student took art. And I didn't really understand that. If you don't need art, why do you have to do a big art project? So when we went to the Alt Ed meeting this year in September, they kind of clarified that and they kind of took that out. So we do not have to do that anymore. So this year we will be fine. And everything else we were highly effective in. So anybody have any questions? I appreciate your support. These kids cannot graduate without us.
I have a comment. I want to commend Carla and the job that she does at Wildcat Academy and Teen Pep. Barbara Cusick has been doing some work on her graduation rate, and this year it's the highest, and I firmly believe that's attributed to Teen Pep and Wildcat Academy because we have more kids graduating through the alternative route than we ever have.
Mm-hmm. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Right. Next will be Brett Smith giving our annual safety report.
Okay, by state law, we've got to have to update you every year with the safety update and try to make sure that this thing is a fluid. There's lots of information, and I could stand up here for a long time, but I don't think you want me to do that. Some of the achievements that we've had, of course, with the bond issues and some of the building fund that we've done, we've got a lot of security entrances and lobby guards in place. And I think that's a huge success that I can directly attribute all of our voters to our bond issues, because we've done a lot of things in that respect. Camera systems, we started with those in 2001, and a lot of that is out of date. Even the new systems that we have now, they don't really talk to our old cameras very well. So we're trying to get those upgraded. We have to use encoders and all those kinds of things. So some of the things we're doing now is making the system better, but it's not there yet, and we can't do it all at once. It's too expensive. So we're going to piecemeal, so to speak, this thing to try to get it up to snuff. SROs, of course, you know that we've got two of those in our district. One goes to the high school, and then we've got one that shares East and West Middle School. Security guards at the high school monitoring the entrance and the parking lots. We've got barriers and corridors. Really only two, like a corridor. One we just finished at the Fine Arts Building to get kids to and from back over in the high school, and then of course the one that we did at Roosevelt a long time ago. Recently we did some ALICE instructor trainings. Now we've got a lot of instructors now in the district, myself included, with our resource officers that took the training, as well as our transportation director. Most of you knew that Randy used to be a police officer at one time, and so this is kind of close to his heart, so he volunteered to do that, and I appreciate it. And then we have a high school assistant principal who's also involved. I'm going to give you just a little synopsis of an Alice scenario. When we were doing the Alice training, they had us do a little PowerPoint, so we learned what to do and then be critiqued by our fellow students on this scenario that we created. So this is part of the training that we have with Alice. It's what they call a blended training. Part of it is as you go online, you take this course. That's one that I want you all to take a look at to see what you think about what Alice is teaching all of us, what we're teaching all of our employees. And then the other part of that is us as instructors go through actual scenarios and drills with our employees so they understand and learn what to do. A lockdown or counter or evacuate, what would you do? This is a public high school. I could have said Ponca City Public Schools. We had 2 armed students caught on camera walking down the halls towards the math wing. Announcement is made to lock down immediately, take appropriate action for the safety of students and staff. This is not a drill. That would be a typical announcement. So 2 armed intruders moving towards the math wing. We've got them on camera so we know kind of where they are and we can alert our folks where they're supposed to be. That is fortunate for us that we have a camera system that can do that. Not every school district does. They're near room 102. Alice, of course, means alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Those that do not have to be done in order. It depends on the situation. The counter part of it can be done at any time depending on what goes on with those intruders. You may not lock down. You try to always inform, but you may not be able to. But those are the different things that you try to do in these events. At 2:15 in the high school, the freshman general math class of 20 students is reviewing a common test and a coming test when the announcement is made to lock down. 2 armed intruders are coming your way and nearby. Lockdown or not? If the intruder is near the room, would it be appropriate to lock down? If so, why? Open-ended question for your students, which will be our employees and can be the students. There's a side light window that's giving you what's going on. There's a side light. It's a window beside the door. We have that in the district in several locations. The door does lock from the inside, and there are windows to the outside that do not open. We've got a lot of that in our district too. They don't open, but there are windows. If a lockdown is the choice, you lock the door. Fortunately, there's a lock on this door. You make the room as dark as possible, turn off the lights, and cover all the windows, including the hallway glass, not to allow him or her to be able to see in. You take all the furniture, equipment, cabinets, etc., and barricade the entrance. Nothing is off limits. Take down the ductwork if you had to. It doesn't much matter. Nothing's off limits. Keep away from the entrance while barricading the door as much as possible in case the shooter fires at the door. This has happened in other instances. Have all students move away from the entrance to adjacent walls or closets after the entrance has been barricaded. All these years we've been doing this, except we've never really talked about barricading the door. Now we do. Counter. If you lock down, a counter part of the process in the event the shooter breaches the entrance. So to prepare for it, you may have to, once you've barricaded the door, you have to pick 6 to 8 students to perform a counter team to take down both intruders, if there are both 2 intruders, in the event they come into the room. If they come into the room with a gun, you don't hide. That's what they used to tell us, hide. When your life's on the line, you do anything and everything you possibly can. So you've got people ready. If he comes through the door, you're going to throw everything, staplers, pencils, books, whatever you can at him. Try to hit them and throw it and hit them as hard as you can. These other 6 to 8 students, you hope you pick some big ones. Just tackle them. Take them down. You're going to hurt them. And that's okay because they're trying to hurt you. So they do this with detailed explanations. You're swarming. This, it's hard to see. This is actually a whole bunch of pigs all piled on each other. This is kind of a joke that we had with our instructor because we call, in football, we call them dog piles. He called them a pig pile. He's from up north someplace, so he had a different kind of a scenario. So we found that just to laugh at him a little bit. One other thing that they teach us is if you get him tackled down and you get the weapon away, don't pick it up and hold on to it, because the police come, they think you're the intruder. So take the weapon away, you put it in a container and keep it away so they can't see it, and then show the cops where it is later on. But you don't pick it up and hold it and say, here it is, because they don't know who you are. Evacuation is always the best choice. If you can get out and get away, that is the safest bet. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but if you can, do it. After locking down and barricading the door, how do you evacuate and where do you exit and where do you go? If the intruders move, if they just move on past your door because you've got it barricaded, what do? You go down the hallway to go out the door? Do you break the windows and go out the backside? Or do you just stay put? Open-ended questions again. Depends on the situation and the scenario. The best solution for this given scenario, if the intruders move on, is to stay in the room, barricade until the police arrive. If they try to breach the door, then you know what you're going to be doing is trying to hold them off the best you can and get as many people outside as you can. Just another scenario within a scenario. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we've learned. The film or video that you're going to see is a whole lot more in depth and makes you think, and then there's a test at the end of it. You do not have to take, by the way, but you can if you'd like. A lot of the progress that we have, of course, the security entrances at all the sites. Central Services Center, what used to be a Wildcat down here at 111 West Grand, still needs to have one. We don't have any students there. It doesn't mean our employees are not important, but that's a place that we need to put one in. And then Washington Pre-K Center, you know that we're doing that this next spring. The bid should go out actually in December. I've got January, so they're going to come back in about then for you to approve those bids. And what else we've done? Of course, drills. We've got drills, oodles and gobs of them. They've got a lot of availability to do any kind of a drill that they want. Training comes in lots of venues, whether it's through the state, whether it's through our own insurance companies, whether it's through us. The inquiry, and we're always asking questions. We're always trying to find out why. And then sometimes the state tells us why, even if we don't know. But there's always something going on all the time, so we have to inquire and try to figure out what we need to do and when we need to do it. Sprinkler systems is part about being safety, so we can get kids and staff out in case there's a fire. A Knox box. A Knox box is is on the outside of every one of our buildings, including this one. That is a box that is secured, and the only people that have a key to it is the fire department. Inside that box is a key to the building, so in the event of a fire, they can get in. Currently, law enforcement doesn't have access to those. I can see that changing after a bit, but currently they don't. Of course, what else have we done? Designs, architect, engineering designs, alarm systems, monitoring, all the procedures, the flip charts that we do. I think there's some here on the counter. Those are just aids to help us remember, because in the event that we have an emergency, it's tough to think straight. So if you got something in front of you that helps you keep in line on what you need to do, it's always important. In the manuals that we have, every site has a manual that has all of the different scenarios that we have with our emergencies, whether it's evacuation, it's a student runaway, whether it's an earthquake, it's all in there. And we have to share that with all of our emergency responders within the city and the county. So they all have a copy of it in any kind of format and medium that they want. And we update those for those folks every year. So timelines and changes. Money is always an issue, because it seems like everything we do, whether there's safety involved or not, costs money. Not always, but for the biggest part of it. Factors of completion and implementation. That may be due to the timing of a bond issue. We need to get something done that's getting mandated, but the bonds are not here yet, so we can't implement those. Or maybe it's towards the end of the fiscal year and we can't get things done until we get new money. So those things are always something we need to think about. Issues that can cause delays or impede progress. That can also be because money's not around, but it also may be something that happens someplace in the United States that causes us to do something different. So we have to back up, punt, and do something that is in those lines. And then why problems might not be anticipated, because you never know what's going to happen, whether it's here or someplace else, and it may be money. This is our safety plan. This are the things that we have in there that's sequential. People know what they're supposed to do. I'll go to their section and see what, I'm a secretary, I look at the secretary's pages that involves a weapon, and I can tell exactly what I'm supposed to do. All of it being, you know, something that's never the same, so it's just a guideline. Schedule is ongoing and everlasting. We're always changing, we're always modifying, we're always trying to upgrade, we're always trying to be safer. For instance, the East Middle School entrance. That was the very first one in the district. We went back, you guys approved us to modify that one to include some ballistic glass, to build a separation and to lock off the office and put in a lobby guard. So now it's up to snuff with all the rest of them, but it wasn't initially, and we thought we were pretty safe. Ongoing commitment to our community for the safety of our students and staff. Our students need to be confident that we're here to protect all their students. All their parents need to believe that. And this kind of a thing with you all and the folks listening to it on the TV can understand that we are on top of this. And then they call us and we can ask questions or answer questions for them. Effective communication, because the first thing that ever go wrong is communication in every kind of an instance. So if we use radios and intercom systems and bells and horns, all those different communication efforts make a big difference. And we have to practice those. Attention from all the players for effective action, everybody, police, fire, certified staff, support personnel, administration, and city and state leaders. And I say plain language at the end of that was because we don't use codes. We use plain language. If an intruder's in the building, we get on the intercom and say an intruder's in the building, and if we can point where he's at, we're going to do that too. Costs, of course, the manuals, flip charts, they're printed every couple of years. They can be as much as $2,000 just for those flip charts. That's why we don't do them every year, but we can update them as we go along. Construction costs, of course, they increase all the time. New technology increase cost. Bond issue passages, there's another cost associated with plans and developments. Training, of course, and state mandates and budget shortfalls. Our resources, bond issues, building fund, provided training, collaborative agreements, grants, all those things that we use for resources and in every instance. So we update the plan annually or as needed and keep it up to date. The annual update to you all, to the board, so you understand where we are and what we're doing. Report new advances in technology in regards to safety of best practices, and secure and plan the best possible course of action for student and staff safety. Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions of Brett? Okay, thank you, Brett.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next, we'll do the building assessment reviews. Lori Cox, the principal of Garfield, and Dr. Trina Ressler, the principal at Union. And I guess Lori's going to go first since she's walking up here.
All right, and good evening. Glad I could be here tonight. This is our night, as you said, for us to go over our last year's testing data and then talk about what we're going to be doing this year to improve. So this is I kind of set it up as our trend data, not just sharing last year's, but the year before, so we can have some discussions about that. But as you can see, in 2016-17, which was our first year to take this test, our third graders scored in the 22% of them scored proficient or advanced. When the fourth graders, we lost a percentage. So we had less proficient in fourth grade on our ELA. Whoops. That's what happens when you want to go back. There we go. So that was concerning to me that we actually have 1% less proficient than we did when they were in third grade. I think a lot of that was due we had 2 entry-year teachers in 4th grade, and we worked really hard with them. But even when you're working hard, as you've heard me share before, you just don't quite have all the tools in your kit that you need when you're an entry-year teacher. So as hard as they worked, we still lost 1%. In 2016, in the 2016-17, we had 29% of our 4th graders score proficient. They moved up to 36%. So we had a 7% gain. And that's what I look for a lot. I know in high poverty schools sometimes we're a little behind the curve, and especially with this new test. So what I'm really wanting to focus on now, I just want to make sure that wherever it is that we start, that each year we're gaining more and more proficiency and that we're growing our students. And so, that was a good gain from the 17 to the 18 school year, going from 4th grade to 5th grade in ELA. And that is our weakest area that we're really trying to get a lot better at, is our ELA, which is our English language arts, which encompass reading and writing and grammar. Then in math, we did better in math. Our 3rd graders in 2016-17, when we first took this test, 19% scored proficient. We gained about 14 percentile points when they went to 4th grade, and they jumped up to 33% proficiency. And then our 4th graders went from 29% proficient in 4th grade to 36% proficient when they went to 5th grade. We are doing better and making better gains. We seem to have a better grasp on what it takes to be more rigorous, and we're getting better. All of our data that we have, everything we have on data, our CFAs, our data wall, our OSTP, our STAR, all of it shows that Garfield is doing better in math than we are in reading. Our science scores in 16-17, 16% of our 5th graders were proficient. We nearly doubled that last year with 31%. So we were real proud of that gain. Current reality, this is our data wall that I share with you every year. I wanted to share it this year because you notice the little squiggly line tape in between there. We discovered, several of us looking at data, Terry looking at data, we discovered that on our nationally normed STAR assessment, and it is a nationally normed test, and it says if a child's at the 50th percentile or above, that they're on grade level. However, the new state test is more rigorous than that. And to be proficient on the new state test, they have to actually score in the 65th percentile. So we've got the little squiggly line up there to show that really they can't just be in the 50th percentile. They've got to be above that little squiggly mark tape up there, right there, in the 65th percentile. So that's what we're shooting for, and that's where we're getting variations in our data from one to the other. And so that's one thing we've really been able to focus on this year that we didn't last year, because we didn't know that until we had a couple years' data. So now that we have that, we're really working hard, and I'll share some more about that in a moment on how we're doing that. This is something I wanted to share with you because this is the idea I got to do with my teachers from what Shelley's having us do as site administrators. Now every month we meet together as a PLC, and we're tracking our grade level data from what it was at the beginning of the year to what it is each time we progress monitor. And then she color codes it for us, red or green, to show us if a particular grade level is going up or down. So I thought, what a better way, I'll share it with my teachers, because on here, this shows us if kids are moving. It's color coded. We know if we're moving kids up or down. This data just is flat out what percentage is proficient. And so this is just proficiency. So we're looking at the same data, but we're looking at different things. And so, and it has shown some things, because then we can have some of those sometimes celebratory discussions on, wow, at the beginning of the year you had, 21% proficient. There was a teacher in 5th grade, Miss Baldwin, that had 21% proficient on ELA at the beginning of the year, and after progress monitoring twice from September 3rd to October 22nd, she's now got 45% of her fifth graders up to proficiency. So, you know, we can have discussions about that, and can you share with us what you're doing to get it there so she can share with her partner teacher, and we can just help build each other up. If one of us is doing something that the other partner could learn from, we want to share that. But also, if our data is not going up like it should in a grade level, then we need to have those uncomfortable discussions on what are we doing that may not be as effective as we thought it would be, and what could we do to change. So that's another important piece of data that we look at. This goes back to what I showed you earlier about our proficiency and our STAR scores having to be in that 65th percentile. All of us had looked at it. It was funny. We had all come to the same conclusion at the same time. This is where they needed to go for their scaled score. And they have to have a scaled score of 662, for example, in fifth grade to be considered proficient on the state test. It correlates to proficiency on our state test. They need a 775 scaled score on the math test. And so Liz Hargraves, I want to give her props on this. Liz came up with this card system, and she started it, and a bunch of the rest of us borrowed it because we like to share with our sister schools, and Liz was very generous on that. So it tells the teacher she can look, and on this student I covered up their names to protect their privacy, but like this student at the very beginning of the year had a 284. They'd come up to a 361 when Katie made these cards for us, our instructional coach. And the score goal is they need to be at a 662. So this tells the student and the teacher, this child, every time they progress monitor, they need to go up 43 scaled points each time. And as if you'll notice in math with this student, they need to only go up 15 points each time. And then this is what they went up the last time they were up to a 363. So as you can tell, they need to grow quite a bit to get there, and that was one of her lower students. I also wanted to show you this because we do have students that are already scoring proficient according to this, and this particular student scored actually advanced in math in fourth grade last year. So is what Katie Thomason did, the instructional coach, is she took and set him the advanced score. He's already at the proficiency score. He's already there. So he's exceeded what they have to be proficient. So she set for him what he needs to get to score advanced on the test. So we're taking them wherever they are, if they're below proficient, to where they need to be proficient. But our students who are higher and proficient, we're setting goals for them to get them to advanced. So that's our data. So now what? How do we get from where we are to where we want to be? Well, in ELA, we want to continue examining and studying the OSD, the Oklahoma State Department of Education's ELA curriculum framework, which is really awesome. If you're ever curious about that and you want to investigate that some, you can go to the Oklahoma State Department's website. They have phenomenal framework that we're using a lot at Garfield, and I like it because it really shows the teacher in lots of different ways the rigor that's going to be required when they teach. So it takes it takes all the standards and tells them this is what it should look like, this is what the student should be doing, these are the resources the teacher can use to help get them there. One of the resources in ELA that they're always linking to and referring to is ReadWorks, so we're incorporating a lot more ReadWorks resources into our ELA instruction and curriculum this year. Reinforcing the Literacy First framework. I send teachers to training. We do some walkthroughs, but really have not adhered to the framework as much as we should, so we're really reinforcing that and really doing some additional training on that. Also, you know, one of the things that our third graders struggle with, our third grade teachers struggle with, and it's been an ongoing struggle, is that when we get so many students in third grade that still do not have foundational skills, that they're still don't have those phonics skills there, they still don't have the know enough sight words. It's real hard for a third grade teacher to work on comprehension skills when a child can't decode or read fluently. So really working hard with our K through 2 to make sure they get those foundational skills. Using the data cards that I just showed you, and then using the Kagan structures. In math, again, using the Oklahoma State Department math curriculum framework, it's phenomenal. Implementing the accelerated math in 3rd through 5th, because that's one thing when we talked about it together as principals and with Terry, is one of the things that we found is that teachers who use accelerated math with fidelity had better math scores. So all of our 3rd through 5th grade teachers are using that. Also the data cards in math, and then again in math, Kagan structures. So I'm just a little over my 7 minutes. Any questions?
We increased it to 10 this year.
Oh, okay, woo! And are there any questions?
You mentioned that you had 2 first-year teachers in the 4th grade early in your talk. Are they still there? Or
no, is what we did. One went to, I think, Virginia or North or South Carolina, somewhere along the East Coast. That's where she was originally from and moved back there. One did stay, but is what I did. I had a phenomenal 5th grade team, and Curtis had actually talked to me and talked me into moving one of my 5th grade teachers down, who is very good and had mentored under Denise Baldwin for 3 years. And so we kind of split up our dynamic duo, and I asked her if she would move to 4th grade to help mentor the other teacher that did come back this year. So I've moved her down to 4th grade, so we have a much stronger 4th grade team this year. We had a phenomenal hire for a 5th grade teacher, Jenny Peck, that I think is just doing an awesome job in 5th grade. And then in 3rd grade, the teacher that we hired is not entry year. She's new to regular education classroom, but she's not an entry year teacher. So
you said that when on that math, when the teachers use whatever that was,
accelerated math,
that they do better. Well, do all your teachers use it? I mean,
we are this year.
They are now.
We are now. We are now.
Okay.
It was an option before. It was a tool in their kit, and now I've asked them, and of course I had to take something off the table because there's just not enough hours in the day to do it all. So my deal with them was if they would do the accelerated math, that they could back off their ST math time. They still do ST math, but they're just not as required to do as much minutes per week with the ST math.
Okay.
And Judy, during our last district PLC, we had master teachers from each grade level, 2nd through 5th, demonstrate how to use it for all teachers. So
Okay.
everybody got another really good crash course on how to implement a accelerated math.
Right, because they've been trained in it before, but if you're trained in it and then you don't really use it for a couple years, then you need a refresher.
Yeah, it just seems like something that was working well for some
Right.
teachers. Everybody should use it.
That's what our focus is on our principal PLCs that we're doing, our secondary and elementary. If it works, if it's proven at one site, then we're going to move to use it district-wide.
Any more questions?
Any other questions for Lori? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks, Lori. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Get us ready to go here. All right, here's our spring data from last year. Numbers not where we want to be. Those numbers all below 40 in reading and math across the board. So definitely some work to do at Union with our OSTP scores. It's across the board. What we have really focused on This year, through our professional development, PLC work and things like that, are more rigorous lesson planning. That is something that as teachers continue through their careers, that focus kind of diminishes for teachers. You know, they're like, I got this, and then we know that our lesson planning needs to be more rigorous in order to do the next thing, which is differentiate. And Lori talked about accelerated math, and that's exactly why accelerated math works so well, is because it is differentiated. The program places kids and then kicks out activities or problems, if you will, that are more tailored to their skills. So they might be building a foundation for kids, or they may be pushing kids onto a higher level. And then, of course, the other thing that we have to plan for in order to make it work are Kagan structures. And I know you've heard everybody talk about Kagan structures, and the goal with a Kagan structure is to involve kids so we have higher numbers of kids manipulating content. So if you think about a traditional classroom where you have a teacher standing up in front of the room asking questions to kids. So if I were to ask if I was a typical teacher without a Kagan structure, I might throw out a question and I would call on Brett. That would mean that Brett is the only kid in the classroom who is manipulating or working with that content. So what a Kagan structure does for us is it involves more kids with that content. And we know, obviously, the more engaged kiddos are, the better that they are going to perform. We have been at Union a Love and Logic school since Shelley was there, maybe even before then. But win-win discipline is also falls underneath, is designed by Spencer Kagan. So that type of, and I hate to call it a discipline policy because it's truly a management policy, very, very similar to Love and Logic, but through Kagan structures. And what we all love about Kagan structures is it teaches social skills right along with content. And you know, we can't ever teach social skills in, well, we can't ever, we do it all the time. We try to teach social skills in isolation, but if you teach them through content and through something like a Kagan structure, then you're not only gaining content, but you're also gaining those social skills. The better managed your classrooms are, evidently, you're going to have better results. So that is something that through that rigorous lesson planning that we are really focusing on: differentiation, social skills, some of those soft skills that kind of went by the wayside for so long, and we're trying to bring those back. So through Kagan structures and win-win discipline. We truly feel like happy kids test well. And that's kind of, I know that's a very, very simple concept, but it proves to be true. Improving our math. Our new math curriculum has an excellent component to it that really, really helps us differentiate. So as we do formative assessments along the way, My Math really helps teachers to differentiate individual instruction. So when it's time to put kids on their independent practice, My Math helps teachers to decide what types of activities to give them. And that's the hardest part about differentiating in a classroom. That's why we like accelerated math, because that does that for us as well. The hardest part about differentiating in a classroom is coming up with these multiple activities to do. So our new math curriculum is right there with that, and it really makes it easy for a teacher, if they will do some formative assessments, to differentiate that instruction. We've brought back something that Union has done for a long time with our Math Masters. It's just a fact fluency activity or practice that we do. And everybody knows the quicker you are at your math facts, the easier it is to focus on those tougher algorithms. If you're having to figure out what 3 times 5 is and try to put it in some kind of tough algorithm, it just makes it harder. So the better our kids are at that fact fluency, then they have more of their working memory to do some tougher math. And then, of course, we've got that accelerated math in our grades 2 through 5. And again, flex grouping or differentiation. And it's tough without some pretty good lesson planning. With our reading, we have trained most of our teachers. They've gone to some Payne phonics, so along with our Journeys instruction, we are adding Payne phonics, so we've kind of had to juggle a little bit how much of what and when, but we're hoping that as our kids move through K1 and 2, that they're getting a pretty heavy dose of Payne phonics. And again, flex groupings, and that comes with not only guided instruction, not only guided reading, but more differentiation. So our scales that we've been working on for several years, we've really bulldogged it hard at Union, and so identifying where those kids are at the beginning of whole group instruction so that we can really build those foundations. If we're trying to teach something to a kid and they don't have any foundational skills, then we're kind of spinning our wheels. So in our intervention groups, we have focused on doing some more flex grouping within there, and instead of, in the past, we've always with interventions, and when I say interventions, that's what it has been, differentiation, but we've pulled kids out and kind of sent them around the building. We are flooding our classroom right now with interventionists so that they're staying in the classroom, and our teachers are seeing their lowest students every day in about a 20-minute time frame there, and then going to another adult. So they're actually seeing 2 adults in that intervention time. Literacy First is something that we are continuing there. And then our Reading Mastery and Corrective Reading are programs that our special education department has used for the last few years, and we've really seen some good gains. And so we have, we spent some of our Title I money on buying those materials for our kids that are struggling to learn how to read, to decode those basic reading skills, but are not identified as special education. So those are kids that have a tough time because they're not seeing a specialist. They're not identified as special education, but they're really having trouble learning how to read. So we're looking forward to using those materials for our additional tutoring. We're going to do some after school and some before school tutoring with those materials. All right. At the beginning of the year, these were our RSA numbers, our students who qualified to be on a reading sufficiency plan. So these are numbers that we don't want to be high, okay? We want to bring those numbers down. So when you look in that first column, those are our beginning of the year. We had that many students who were scoring below the 40th percentile on STAR. In the past, we've used Literacy First to place kids on an RSA, but the state has eliminated that as an option, so now we just look at STAR. So any kid that scores below that 40th percentile has been put on a reading sufficiency plan. So if you look at our fall STAR data at the beginning of the year, those are the numbers of students who were proficient. So the red is your reading scores and the blue are your math scores. Those are the numbers of kids who were proficient. So you can see how we have, I don't have any kindergarten math scores because they don't take a STAR math test, but so you can see how from August, early September, and then just recently, these are just November scores, how we have grown in just those few months. So we're pretty pleased with those STAR scores. Now, the next column, though, even though we're pleased with STAR scores, like Lori talked about, we're seeing kids, our data wall also has a little squiggly line like Lori showed you, but what these numbers are not in that last column are kiddos that, even though we consider them proficient at 50th percentile, these are the kiddos who are at the 65th percentile. Okay, so not where we need to be, not where we need to be at all. And so what we see, finally, in closing here, is that we have got to be doing things in the classroom that are more rigorous. And when I say more rigorous, we've got to be asking kids to do multi-step problems. We've got to be asking kids to not only figure an algorithm, but to pull data out of a chart or something and manipulate it. So those multi-step, higher level, authentic learning opportunities are so, so very important to us. And that, again, is why we've got to plan for that, because that doesn't happen automatically. All right.
Questions for Trina?
Anyone have any questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, the next order of business is the consent agenda, which includes the agenda with commentary, the minutes from last time, and the contracts that were under 10,000. Briefly, there was a couple, Brett wants to put some cameras out at Sullivan Stadium for security. We've got some work to do in this room and the room next to it on some cabling. We have a $2,000 expenditure to the Ponca City Country Club for both the boys and the girls to use the golf course and the range, putting green and chipping green for the second semester. A couple expense items out of the general fund, small items less than $1,000, some activity fund expenditures for fundraisers, and a couple of no royalty fee charges for a couple places that want to use the Ponca City Wildcat logo. So at this point, unless there's questions on the consent agenda, I'd entertain a motion to approve them.
I'll move to approve it.
Have a motion from David. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Nancy.
What was the agreement for the country club for the golf course?
$2,000 for the second semester.
Oh, yeah.
And then it is just for this year. Next year's, we'll start all over, new negotiations, and that would have to be completed by the August board meeting if first semester is involved.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, call for the vote. Jan?
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Motion carried. Next item, consider and take action on the following district financial reports. We had, as usual, another long meeting. Dawn was there, I was there. We talked about a lot of the funds, the expenditures, et cetera. We were satisfied with the comments that were made. Does anybody have any questions for Brenda on the financial reports? If not, I'd ask for a motion for 7.1.
I will motion it.
Have a motion from Nancy, second from David. Comments or questions? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye. Item 7.2, consider and take action on setting the date, time, and location for the 2019 board meetings. As usual, all the meetings except one are the second Monday of each month, and that one exception is the July meeting has to be moved to the third Monday because of the 4th of July. Any questions on that? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the calendar for the board meetings for calendar year 2019.
I'll make a motion for 7.2 for the 2019 board meetings.
Have a motion from Judy. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Nancy. Comments or questions? Call for the vote.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
7.3, consider and take action for the following board policies. A is a teacher certification stipend, and I'm going to let Shelley explain that one. I got a little confused, to be honest, myself on this one.
Okay, in September, we reviewed all 28 proposals, and we had actually requested this board policy. We have a degree preparation stipend for our certified who move from one degree level to the next. We pay a one-time stipend of $1,500 once they obtain 16 credit hours toward their next degree level. With the severe teacher shortage crises, we have more and more of our support people who have some college credit, and we want to give them some incentive to go back to college, obtain that degree, obtain standard certification, and then offer them the one-time stipend. Well, we're not attorneys, so we wrote up our language and sent it back to RFR, and then they beef up our policies for the legalese to protect us. Well, they failed to send the beefed up policy back to us. And when I say they changed it up just a little bit, it just says if they're hired in the middle of the year, that stipend is prorated. It will be paid after 4 months or at the end of the year, depending on when they were hired. And if they do not fulfill their contractual obligations and we pay that back to them, then they have to reimburse out of their last salary. They failed to send that in the email train. So when Betty sent the approved policies back to RFR, they were not finding their version of the teacher certification stipend, and they couldn't even find where they sent it. So this was an error on RFR.
See why I didn't want to try to explain it? Okay. Any comments or questions on A? Not, I'd ask for a motion to approve 7.3A item.
I'll make a motion to approve 7.3A.
Have a motion from Judy. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
Second from Nancy. Comments or questions? Call for the vote.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
B, vacation, 12-month employees. Basically, this policy is a change that we cannot, 12-month employees cannot carry over vacation as true vacation for the following year. Comments or questions on this one?
Can I talk about this just a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, this is one that we had requested clarification. Previously, our employees could carry over 10 days, and then our policy read that those carryover days had to be used by the end of the year. Well, our employees were thinking by the end of the calendar year, it was deemed the fiscal year. So we sent this policy in just to clarify for our employees. Well, our policy writers sent it back and said there's no statute authorizing vacation carryover into future years. This could potentially be challenged as a gift under our state gifting prohibition of the Constitution. So what we did was we recommended to go with what our policy writers had recommended. And in the state, there are two major school law firms. There's the Center for Education Law, and there's RFR, who are the education law firms. They write most of the policies. We actually polled other schools in our area and schools about our same size to see what they did. If they're with RFR, they typically do what we do. If they're with the Center for Education Law, there is a different interpretation. They carry over. Enid, they have no accumulation, and that is forfeited. Now, Tulsa Union, on the other hand, their unused vacation is converted to sick leave. Both of these schools use RFR. We're proposing, and you can see that vacation policy on page 101, is that unused vacation is then converted to sick leave, and that's what Tulsa Union does. Stillwater can carry over 5 days, but they only have a maximum of 20. Guthrie can carry over 20 days, but they only get 12 vacation days a year. Our certified 12-month employees get 15. That's capped. And if you see on the vacation policy, our support 12-month employees have a tiered vacation. If they've been, they get 10 days of vacation if they've been with the district less than 10 years, 15 days of vacation if they've been with the district 10 years or more, and 20 days of vacation with 20 years or more service. So we do have some tiered vacation there. Now, here's what I have to recommend. I think I can only ethically recommend that you follow the recommendation of our policy writers. So my recommendation is to approve this policy. Our employees aren't losing vacation. They are losing the ability to carry over the 10 days, but we are going to convert that into their sick leave is the proposal, because that's legal to carry over sick leave, and both education law firms agree with that.
If I remember correctly, this was the item that we tabled last time and pushed forward to this meeting just because there was a lot of discussion and a lot of confusion on which way to go. It appears that there's two basic law firms. One says this way, one says this way. Our particular people that the school board uses, RFR, believes that we should not be able to carry it over, is my understanding.
OSSBA agrees with that. They're not a major law firm, so if they write policies for some schools, OSSBA typically, they don't carry over vacation. It's a mixed bag across the state.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'd ask for a motion for item B.
I'll make a motion for item
Judy
7.3B.
proposes B. We have a motion for 7.3B. A second?
A second.
Second from David. Comments, questions? Call for the vote.
Dr. Kincaid?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Okay, moving right along, 7.4, consider and take action on the following contracts agreements. These are agreements of over $10,000. I'll read and give a quick explanation for each, then we'll ask for a motion for all unless somebody wants to talk about a particular one. Agreement with SHI for renewal of the Microsoft licensing agreement. I believe we used the volume buying power from the state contract as how the rates are determined for this one, and it was about $48,000. B is an agreement with Kyler Construction Group for the Ponca City Public School buildings. We've got several buildings, Washington Elementary, Roosevelt. This is the standard agreement we use with our construction managers for pay them 6% of the cost of the project. C and D are agreements with Catapult Learning. These are federal dollars that are spent for private schools, in this particular case, St. Mary's, and it really doesn't cost us anything, us as the district, because we receive federal funds to pay for this. E is agreement with DEPCO for online curriculum management. This is software, as I understand it, to work with the existing laser program and the laser equipment that we have. I think, Troy, you explained this a little bit.
It's a classroom management system for STEM, which we haven't spent Carl Perkins funds on quite some time. So we're trying to get their program up to date. It will actually teach them how to use CorelDRAW, how to use Landscape Pro, which are both professional programs. And then it also has those programs within it. And yeah, some of it interacts with the laser.
So it's the software that works with the existing equipment that we have to make it better.
Some of it, yeah.
Okay. Agreement with Anderson Flooring. This is to put new type flooring into the old weight room. It's my understanding this has been approved by both the strength and conditioning coach. Our other coaches are in favor of this. When this type flooring goes in, if we put the appropriate nets up, softball, baseball, golf, it can be used without hurting the floor from all the other sports. So this can kind of be a small, multi-purpose room, whether it be sleds, stretching, running, golf, softball, or whatever. It was about $40-some thousand with Anderson Flooring. Agreement with Building Automation Company for the HVAC control scope for the BAS control upgrade for Union, Washington, Liberty. Last month, we approved a contract with automated integration for about $40,000. That contract has not been executed yet. Since then, Brett has found a better company that provides better service for about $10,000 less expense. We want to, in essence, void our agreement that we made last month, since the contract has not been executed, and sign a new agreement with this company. That kind of cover it, Brett? Right. Okay, with that said and done, does anybody have any questions on any of those?
I do.
Okay.
How come St. Mary's has to go through us to get that money?
I'll let Shelley explain that when I ask her the very same question.
Barry, you're up.
That's a good question.
All LEAs, local education agencies, have to offer the private schools a portion of their title funding. It's federal dollars, and it's just part of it. It's what you have to do. Every year I have to go and consult with each of our private schools in town, and I ask them if they want to take the dollars, and if they agree that yes, they do, then I have to fill out a private school packet, which they provide me with the names of students and addresses of students that are qualified for free reduced lunch. And then I have to figure out which site that kid would be coded to if they were attending our schools, our sites, and that's how their dollars are figured. And they're considered targeted schools because they're not school-wide. But we don't have a choice. We have to offer it to them if they say yes.
If they accept.
So what are you doing with the other two private schools?
Yeah. Did you do it?
What are you doing with St. Mary's and?
No, this is St. Mary's here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For Lutheran and then.
Lutheran and Ponca City Christian.
Yeah, Ponca City Christian, they didn't take it, they didn't want it, and they haven't taken it since I've been here. But St. Mary's and Lutheran both accept the funding every year, and they receive a Title I portion and a Title II portion. So most usually, they elect to do tutoring with their Title I money, but they have to have certified teachers doing that, and they're like everybody else. They can't find certified teachers. So St. Mary's, we could not find a Title I teacher for them. They have to go through us. We're the LEA. We're the ones that we take care of the funding. We do not give them the funding. The funding is managed here. So, we couldn't find a certified teacher to do tutoring for them, so they elected to use their Title I money for training.
But it has to go through a public school.
It has to go through us, yes.
Title I school.
Lutheran uses their Title I money for tutoring.
So did Lutheran find one?
They were able to find, yes.
Okay.
Federal dollars have strings attached. That's why PCCA declined it. And truthfully, these costs are for Literacy First. It's about the same amount as Literacy First training as what a tutor would have, the same expense of a tutor.
Federal government, Judy. Federal government.
Yes, sir.
Trying to get them to use some of their money for professional development, just because it is a great way to use it, but they've always elected to do tutoring. But this year, they do have a new principal, and she deemed that some professional development would be good for her staff.
It just seems.
Any other questions?
That's all you have to say.
It is a good question, though, Judy.
Then I'd ask for a motion to approve 7.4.
I motion it.
To have a motion from Nancy. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Second from David.
A through G.
Comments or questions?
Are they all, I mean, are we
Yeah,
doing
this is for all of them. A, B, C, D, E, and F.
And G.
and
A through
G.
Okay.
Comments or questions?
Did someone make a motion?
Yeah,
I'll second.
those two did it. David,
David did.
we're done.
Okay.
Call for the vote.
Dr. Kincaid? Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Motion carried. 7.5, consideration of vote to approve or not approve a proposed executive session for the following purposes. Discuss the possible termination, reassignment, resignation, and employment of personnel on the attached detailed personnel report. To discuss confidential conversations with the board attorney concerning pending claims and litigation, or to discuss negotiations. We do need to have a small, short executive session. Do I have a motion to move to executive session?
I'll make a motion to move
In
to
a second?
executive session.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. We're recessed for executive session for just a little bit. Open session. The minutes of the executive session were kept by the board minutes clerk and will remain confidential. Consideration item 7.8, and take action on recommendations for termination, reassignments, resignation, and employment of personnel shown on the attached detailed personnel report. Comments or questions about the personnel report? Do I have a motion to approve 7.8?
I'll make a motion to approve 7.8.
We have a motion from Judy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second from David. Comments or questions? Call for the vote.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Troop?
Aye.
Mrs. Zimmershed?
Aye.
Dr. Kincaid?
Motion carried. Item 8, new business. I don't think there's any, is there?
No.
Okay, no new business. Item 9, everybody's favorite, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion
Thank
to
you for
adjourn.
doing that.
And I
Do I
will
have a second?
second that.
All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are adjourned.
We're getting involved.